What is going on, people? Leo here from Creative Tech Lab. Today we're going to talk about my year in review with the Sony RX100 VI. If you guys have watched any of my content before, you know I really love this camera. So we're going to talk about what I've been able to do with it for a year, doing YouTube, doing a few cinematic videos. And I know the 7 was just announced. However, because of the similarities between the 6 and the 7, especially with both of these cameras now being so different from the Mark V and onwards with the 24 to 200 millimeter lens, I think this insight for my year in review insight for the 6 will be great insight for anybody that is looking forward or really heavily considering getting the 7. So let's get into it. So first and foremost, welcome to Creative Tech Lab. My name is Leo. This is the YouTube channel to accompany our website, creativetechlab.com, which will eventually feature everything video creation related, audio creation related, motion graphics, so on and so forth. So thank you for being here. Please go ahead, hit the subscribe button if you're into any kind of quick, easy video creation or audio production or anything like that. You will not be disappointed. So let's get into the Sony RX100 VI. All right, so it's been a year now that I've had this camera and it has been amazing. It has been everywhere with me, taking pictures of my kids, going on family vacations, going on big vacations like Amalfi Coast or Singapore or Bali, which we just came back from, which you'll see those videos pretty soon. And let's get into how I ended up even purchasing this camera. So last year, I was looking at doing something better than my cell phone. I've done videos before, smaller things here or there, and I was really looking to get something that could do something better than my cell phone. I highly considered getting a DSLR. I was almost this close to buying the Canon 80D or something in that realm. And then a friend of mine, whose camera I'm actually shooting on now, which is a Sony RX100 Mark V, he introduced me to the camera. I went to go and buy the 5 only to find out that the 6 was coming out within weeks. I went ahead and bought the 6 and I've been so pleased with it. So let's go ahead and get into the things that I really like about this camera and the things that I've been able to do with it. And then I'll go ahead and address some of the cons that some people think they have, because a lot of people just look at specs and haven't actually used the camera. And then lastly, I'll address the 7, which is coming up as well. So I can confidently say that this camera is the best point and shoot in the market. This is a mini Sony Alpha camera, not just an A9. I know a lot of people always want to call it an A9 in your pocket. A9 is mainly for stills. I use this mainly for video, and it has some really pro grade video features packed into this little small camera that could fit into your pocket. So things like S-Log 1, 2, and S-Log 3 on this camera is a big deal for when you get into those high contrast scenes where it is that you need a little bit more dynamic range. And then also HLG log, which is my favorite picture profile, which I'll get into probably a little bit more. But the main thing that I find that I really like about this camera is the extra reach. I know the 5 and the 4 went from 24 to 70 and there was a trade-off in terms of aperture, but the trade-off to me is worth it. This is why, especially when shooting like those travel videos and stuff. I'm really big on not trying to interrupt the experience when it is that I'm shooting those videos, especially when you're traveling with other people. You actually can't interrupt the experience when you're traveling with your kids because they're interrupting your experience for you. So the ability to shoot something wide at a landscape and then punch into a subject medium and then able to get like super wide on the fly is really cool. And then a lot of times like you don't have time to like get all the way close up to your subject depending on what it is when it is that you're traveling. So both for video and for stills, that extra from 70 all the way up to 200 really comes in convenient. And then just in general, even when it is that you're not pressed for time and you're not necessarily shooting on the fly, having that wide of a range just gives you more flexibility as a creator. And I know that you lose some aperture. I'll get into low light as one of the cons in a little bit, but one thing that I will say in terms of depth of field, the way it's perceived when it is that you're able to punch in at 85 or at 135 or all the way to 200, you're able to compress the background so much that you're still able to get some nice, cool bokeh looking both photo shots and also on video as well. Even though you're at f4, I think it still works out really well and gives you a nice clean image, as you could see from some of the b-roll that I'm rolling right here. The other places where I really think that it also shines as well is a lot of times you're not going to be able to take your camera to certain places. So as you could see here, this was me at the Jay-Z and Beyonce concert, or also at the Falcons game. Being able to punch in on those situations really shows the difference on the reach. And another thing is, in terms of having small children, my children are 4 and 2 years old, and a lot of times when you want to capture those candid moments of them, if you're with your cell phone, or even sometimes I've tried to capture them with the Kevin's 5, 70 millimeters is great, but you still have to get up close to get a nice close portrait shot. Whereas sometimes I'm just across the room, they're doing something that I think is cute, and I could zoom right in at 135 or at 200 millimeters and capture the shot. So I think the trade-off for me was 100% worth it in terms of losing aperture. Yes, it would have been great if this was 1.8 to 1.2, but a lot of the times I'm not in super dark situations, and in the times that I am, I'd much prefer the reach than the low light. That's just me. If you're in dark clubs a lot, or you're inside, shooting inside a lot and not shooting outside a lot, definitely I think you should go for the Mark 5 and below, or the 5A or whatever it is. It's also for me the perfect vlogging camera. I know it didn't have, the 6 didn't have a mic input. They've definitely solved that with the 7, and once it is that you get into the 7, but even without the microphone, I think the onboard microphones are decent enough to vlog on, depending on your situation. The other main thing is that it's so small and so inconspicuous that if you're a new vlogger like I am, you don't feel like you're drawing a lot of attention to yourself with this camera. Same thing for some of the previous versions again, but definitely when you're out and stuff, it makes for a great vlogging camera. And then like I said, with the additional reach, when it is that you're out vlogging and you want to get some b-roll, you have more creativity or more creative flexibility in terms of being able to create those different b-roll shots. So I think that's a major key for me in terms of this camera versus the 4 or the 5. It's the same thing in terms of creative flexibility with the extra reach. All right, so I have talked about some of the pro grade features in this camera. I also kind of want to talk about ease of use, because when I first got this camera, I got it a week before it came out. Actually a few days, I got it the week it came out, and actually a few days before I went on this trip. And this was the first time that I was ever using a camera with any pro grade features. I actually didn't know anything about pro grade features, not nearly as much as I've known right now since I've been attending the YouTube University and following all the different creators on how to shoot in manual and setting right shutter speed and all those different things. I just picked it up and used it like it was my iPhone, and I did what was intuitive to me. So to give an example about how much I didn't know what was going on with this camera, I took this camera to Italy, the whole reason and purpose for getting this camera, and I just put it into movie mode and I shot in movie mode, and when I wanted to take pictures, I put it into P, which I thought was for photo. Only to learn very quickly that P is not for photo, P is for program mode, which is completely different. However, it turned out great. The shots that were shot in P and that priority mode came out really good, and the video quality shooting in auto turned out great. The very first cinematic video that I put out on the Amalfi Coast, which has done decent, it has about 1,500 views at the time of this shooting. It was shot all in auto, which means if you're not a professional and you're just a regular consumer and you don't want to necessarily learn about all the different things, I'm not sure why you would buy this camera. However, if you did, know that you would be getting a great camera. It would take great stills in auto or in one of the priority modes, and it would still take way better video than anything that you would get out of your cell phone. So even if you're just using it in auto and you're a regular consumer, and this is not a compliment to your Sony Alpha camera or your big DSLR setup and something that you just want to keep in your camera because you don't want to carry your interchangeable lens camera, this is still a great option for just the average consumer. It's a little bit pricey, but if you want the top of the line point and shoot and you want your video and your photos to look great, go ahead, get the 6 or the 7. All right, so now we're gonna address cons. As I mentioned before, I wanna do this in 2 segments. I wanna do the on paper cons because when the camera comes out, and still to this day in a lot of different groups, there's a lot of people that never use this camera that just looks at the specs and forms an opinion about them. And I think all of us are prone to do this. I've seen this with everything from computer products, laptops, cell phones, everything else. We kind of look at the specs and then the specs say, oh yeah, we know this one thing about aperture, we know this one thing about sensor size, or we know this or whatever, but we don't know how it performs when it all comes together. I think these cons or this type of mindset stems from 2 types of people. I think anybody that had the Mark V and before became really committed to f1.8 to 2.8 and didn't want to hear anything else of losing an entire stop of light. They didn't even give the camera a chance. It was dead on arrival for them just based on that. I see that time and time again. In some cases it's true. I think for the average person it's definitely not true, especially if you're outside a lot. For stills, I've definitely never ever got into a situation when I was like, oh yeah, the 5, which I'm shooting on right now, is definitely better than the 6, or even worth the trade-off for that extra stop of light. I think if you could open up your shutter speed just a little bit more, you have a little bit more flexibility in terms of what you're able to do on the exposure triangle for stills than you can for video because you have your shutter speed set. For stills, it's definitely not an issue in terms of the low light. And then for video, I think again, it's worth the trade-off. But I think those people that have never used the camera before get far too down into the specs and not into actually using the camera. Again, I think the reach is worth the trade-off more so than the low light, unless there's a couple people that I don't recommend it to. Like I have a lot of friends that are DJs that also shoot recap videos with a large interchangeable lens camera. Sometimes they don't want to carry that around. If you're in a dark club or if you're in dark areas, something like that a lot, then of course go ahead and get something that has a little bit more low light. It's not going to be like an A7 or a Sony Alpha camera or something like that because you're still dealing with a 1/8 sensor, but every little bit will help while you're in that situation, so go ahead and do that. But otherwise, if you're a regular person, you're going to be outside most of the times, that's not a big deal. Also, in regard to low light, I have bumped the ISO up a lot. It depends on what you're shooting. You also have to know, somebody said this to me the other day, a videographer that we work with for our events. You also have to realize that most people are watching these videos on a cell phone and not on a wide screen. A little bit of grain introduced into your shot, especially if you need it to expose for your subject. Usually a little bit of grain in the background is not a huge deal, and you will be able to expose for your subject. If it's telling the story better, that's way better than underexposing the shot. And at f2.8 with the ISO cranked up a little bit and the shutter speed set, 90% of the time you're still able to get the shot that you need with this camera. Other major complaint that I hear is that this camera doesn't have a built-in ND filter like the G7X Mark II or now the G7X Mark III or the 5 and stuff before it. Here's the deal. In my experience, if you're outside using this camera in 1080p or 4K or whatever, if it is that you're outside and you're vlogging and you're shooting in 24 frames per second, the ND filter on the 5 is actually not strong enough to deal with really bright sunny conditions. Case in point here, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon here on my deck. This is me with the 5 outside with the ND filter on that's built in. As you can see, I'm still pretty blown out. My background is completely blown out. I need something that's a little bit better than this in really bright conditions. And then this is S-Log with the 5. And as you can also see, it is still a little bit blown out, a little bit better image, but still not exactly what you would need in terms of exposing the shot. Now, for comparison, this is the 6 with the ND filter that's on, threaded on there. Video will be linked above in terms of how to get an ND filter onto the 6. I use a lens mate adapter and a I actually use a lens mate adapter and a Hoya filter on that camera, and that's how I'm able to keep my shutter speed where it's supposed to be and keep the light down. I think the ND filter is way better. I also use a gold filter from times, which is a little bit darker because sometimes it's really bright, especially in some of these tropical situations where we are, or just during the summer times and it's really bright outside. That actually is a better option to me than a built-in ND. Now, don't get me wrong, I would love built-in ND. Sometimes you forget your ND filter or you can't find it or whatever, and having built-in ND is better than having none. But I think ultimately, if you're gonna be using this camera like this and using the correct shutter speed all the time, you're still gonna need an external variable ND filter to deal with the different situations of vlogging, or even if you're shooting cinematic videos like I do on this camera, you definitely need an external ND filter. So I don't think it's that big of a deal to me. Last but not least, but this has been addressed on the 7, is the no microphone jack. That is actually a big deal to me. That would be a reason possibly not get this camera. Obviously I've addressed that now on the 7. So if you're in the market for this camera, then maybe you want to spend the extra money from the 6 to go up to the 7. That being said, I found that the onboard microphones are still pretty much usable for the most part in most situations. You do get some background noise. I actually did a video on how to get better sound out of your onboard microphones if you do have to use them in a crunch. So that's one thing. And again, I think when Sony was targeting this camera, they were targeting it to one of two people. Somebody just like myself that was looking for something that was better than their cell phone and didn't want a whole bunch of other things to carry around on the camera. They truly wanted something that was as portable as a cell phone, but also be able to shoot like a pro grade camera. So with that being said, I actually didn't want like a microphone or anything, other accessories stuck to the camera that would make it any less portable. I think the other person that this camera was really geared at was somebody that has an alpha camera and was still looking for that portability for different situations while they're out at dinner, while they're somewhere where they can't carry their interchangeable lens camera, and something that again could fit in their pocket, not necessarily to have the full-blown features of everything that would go on to there. So again, that was a trade-off. That's something that's now been addressed and something that you could use now. As far as other little things that I think could be better on the camera, I think the touchscreen could be a little bit more usable. That's one thing. And what else? It does take a little getting used to in terms of finding all your menus and stuff, but I actually have a video in terms of setting up all your cinematic settings. Once you learn that and you actually use the camera and you find your way around the camera, you watch a couple of YouTube videos like some of mine or some of other people using other pro grade cameras, because again, the menu system on this is just like any other Sony Alpha camera. Once you find your way around it, it becomes pretty easy to use. The only other negative that I would say is the battery life. The battery life on this is not great. It's a small camera, so obviously it comes with these little small batteries. Pro tip, what I would say is that you need to get multiple batteries. For me, it takes at least 2 on a full day if you're shooting a lot. If you're shooting in 4K or if you're doing a lot of 120p, then I'd definitely say at least 3. And pro tip, these little things right here, I have 2 of these. So when I bought extra batteries, I bought these. So like when I'm on like a long trip or if I'm going out on a day, like sometimes in these remote locations like in Bali or when we're on the coast and we're out all day, we could charge these via micro USB to a portable charger or just while we're on the run. It also helps me charge 3 or 4 batteries at a time rather than just what's in the camera. So that helps a lot. And then the last pet peeve I would say is the dreaded overheat sign. Now I haven't run into it as many times as a lot of other people. I think I've been out in sunny conditions shooting in 1080p, but if you are shooting I've been inside actually and have it shooting at 1080p and it get a little bit hot on a long interview, like some of the creative spotlights where it has been 20 minutes running or maybe 15 minutes running in 1080p and it gets a little overheated. Shut it down for a little bit and then it came back just fine. But in 4K, you definitely get the dreaded overheated sign, and then sometimes it will just completely shut down and say internal temperature too hot. So that's one more thing. I don't have too many other real cons in terms of being able to use it all year. I think the biggest con would probably be the price. But again, if it is that you're looking for the best camera out there on the market that could fit into your pocket, this is definitely it. And for me, it's worked out to be well over this last year. Even at $1,200, this is my A camera. It's what introduced me to YouTube. I could shoot cinematic videos on it, get cool B-roll, get talking headshots, get great video of my family, get great photos from my family. It shoots in RAW. I don't need to go through all the specs in terms of the burst speed and all that stuff. The autofocus on it is amazing. Even though there's even better autofocus on the 7, the autofocus in the 6 was still amazing for this year that I have. It's never really missed focus. So I can't say too many bad things about the camera except for the price. I think they could have maybe kept the price down to maybe $1,000. That would really have been the sweet spot. But trust me, the extra $200 for anybody looking at the 6, which I think now is priced at $1,100, anybody looking at the 7, it will be definitely worth your money in terms of quality of image and quality of photos. Durability. So I'd just like to talk about how durable it is. It's definitely held up well. I've not been soft on the camera. It has a couple drops. It's definitely had a couple scratches on there, but it still works. It works like a charm. It's almost new, aside from actually this just is one scratch here. I don't see any other scratches on the camera. I usually have the ND filter on there so that protect the lens. The only thing that I would say is that when I was in Italy, the very first one that I had gave an issue where the shutter right here would close. So as you can see, that kind of, as it closes, camera turns off, that would get stuck on the very first one that I had. But I bought it from B&H Photo and they sent me a new one. So I've had this one since, I guess, August of last year when they sent me the replacement one. It's worked fine and it's worked great. And again, I'm grabbing it in and out of my bag. I'm traveling with it. I do have small children. I've dropped it a couple of times. The camera still works amazing. So durability wise, again, small pocket camera. It's also going in and out of your pocket. Small pocket camera. I did have a screen protector on it. The last one I had fell off, so I need to get a new one, but it definitely does hold up in terms of wear and tear, at least for the year that I've had it. So that is my quick review, or maybe not so quick review. I need to see how this edit down of the Sony RX100 Mark VI. And again, in terms of, in reference to the 7, the reach is definitely worth the trade-off to me, especially if you're looking as a travel camera, as a family camera, or as a complement to your Sony Alpha camera. Definitely go ahead, purchase the 7 with a lot of confidence. Or if you don't need the microphone jack and the autofocus, go ahead and pick up the 6 for a little bit cheaper. You'll probably be able to find it used now for probably under $1,000, because there's going to be a few people that are selling their 6 for the 7. There's already a couple people that commented on my reaction video, I'll link that down below as well, that said they're definitely going to get the 7 for the mic input and maybe the autofocus as well. So if you could find a good deal on a 6 and you don't need the mic input and the autofocus, definitely go ahead and purchase that with confidence. If I told you could get an A6400 with a retractable lens that would still fit in your pocket, that shot f2.8 to 4.5, 24 equivalent 24 millimeters to 200 millimeters, you would jump at it. It wouldn't be a big deal. So when you think about it in those terms, completely worth it. I'm still not sure if I'm going to get the 7. I'm going to buy it to test it out. I am waiting on the Sony a7S III, and therefore a lot of the things that I'd be getting or upgrading to the 7 IV, I will get in that. But I am going to get it to test it across a couple of different things. So I still have a lot more content to come out about this camera, and I'll still do it on the 6, seeing that it's so similar to the 7. So I'll do low light tips on how to get better low light performance out of this camera. I'm gonna do probably a low light comparison because I know that's another thing that people always look for. Again, I'm shooting on a Friends 5 right now, so I'll have him go out and we'll do the 5. So look forward to that content. Again, hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, go ahead and hit it like. So I will see you in the next one. More RX100 videos to come, more iMovie trailers to come, and look forward to our next video, which will be about music creation and how to mix on the headphones when it is that you're in one of those situations where you can't use your monitors. And I will catch you in the next one. Peace.